Welcome to Lab Notes. I'm Joe Fetterman from Colliers International, and we're here today with Tiffany Wilson, the new president and CEO of the University City Science Center. And Tiffany, we're delighted to have you here with us. We've had some conversations, and we'd love to hear about your new role, and we'll talk a little bit also about how you came to take this role. So welcome to Lab Notes today.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to be at the Science Center now.
So it's been about 6 months. And why don't we start just by talking a little bit about your background, how you came to this position, and some of the positions that came before.
Sure. So my background, I studied international business. I started my career in consulting and investment banking in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Coming out of business school, I got involved raising money for a tissue engineering startup out of Cambridge and had the opportunity to join the management team of that company to lead finance and strategy, which for all of you who work in startups, you know, that means that you get to be the special projects person and wear a lot of different hats. So that's introduced me to medtech. I completely fell in love with the sector. Spent about a decade with that company and another startup in Atlanta, bringing new technology to first commercial launch. When about 10 years ago, I had read about the Global Center for Medical Innovation spinning out of Georgia Tech. And through a number of serendipitous opportunities, I ended up being blessed to have the opportunity to launch GCMI. So GCMI was founded as a not-for-profit, just like the Science Center, with very similar mission around creating, really from an economic development standpoint, how do we keep the innovation happening in our own backyard, turning into successful startups to create jobs and attract investment in the region. I learned about the Science Center in 2014. I was involved in the first selection committee for the Digital Health Accelerator, which is now our launch lane. But then I had the opportunity to work with Steve Tang at when he was CEO at on the National Advisory Council for Innovation and Entrepreneurship, NACI. And that was really opened my eyes to all the great work happening in Philadelphia around not only innovation and entrepreneurship, but workforce development and how all of those areas have to work together to see successful kind of economic growth in the region.
So Tiffany, there's a lot to talk about with the programs at the Science Center, but before we do, let's just dive in a little deeper on GCMI, because that, boy, what you accomplished there was quite remarkable, and I think it's really shaped a lot of what you bring to the Science Center. So if we can just take a quick look back,
sure.
I'd love to hear more about that.
So I was interested in GCMI when I read about the opportunity in the Atlanta Business Chronicle. A light bulb went off for me. Thinking, had I had access to something like that 10 years prior when I was in Washington, it would have been a game changer for us in terms of speed to market. And so I really approached the build out of GCMI. It started with a 12,000 square foot facility, certified clean room space, design lab, machine shop, and really thought about, what do I wish I would have had access to? What was missing? What did we spend a lot of time on? What did we burn a lot of hours on, the burn rate? And so it was really built it from that perspective. And one of the key areas that I kind of thought early on was the concept of process versus therapeutic area specific, because we were called the Global Center for Medical Innovation. And so by its very definition and goal, we wanted to make sure that we were able to have an impact no matter what innovation came out. And at the time, we were seeing a lot of convergence as well between medical devices and digital health. So we were already starting to see those shifts. And when I thought about it, it really became down to the de-risking process. And so the way FDA regulates, it doesn't matter if it's a new heart valve or a spinal implant or a wearable that's regulated. It follows the same product development pathway. You just need different expertise along the way. So we really put a team in place that enabled us to work with lots of different technologies and then built relationships with external parties, whether it's intellectual property, regulatory, reimbursement, contract manufacturers, investors. So theoretically, no matter who came in the door, we'd be able to help them in one shape or form. And then we grew that company through an acquisition. So when I left in September of last year, we were about 65 people, and did a lot of product development and testing work from bench test to large animal.
And just for the record, how many were you there when you started?
One.
So congratulations on that. That's really impressive. So I think it's a great place to segue to the Science Center. You've been on board now for 6 months, and you've embarked on a strategic planning exercise. And it sounds like you're getting down the road on that. And let's talk a little bit about the plan and what you're seeing for looking ahead.
Yeah, so but my first 90 days were really spent on a lot of introductions, a lot of listening, understanding what was happening in the community. We kicked off the strategic planning exercise to really define what the next decade of the Science Center will look like in early January. And we're about a third of the way through that process. But the data and insights that we've been able to gather through conversations with the people that we serve, with our board, with our staff and employees, has really enabled us to land on a vision that's not ready to be released yet, but will be very focused in terms of addressing healthcare challenges, which is what's so prevalent in the Philadelphia region. Whether you're a pharmaceutical company, a biotech company, cell and gene therapy, medical device, digital health, all of these innovators and entrepreneurs get up every day motivated to go solve a big, hairy problem in healthcare that's going to improve someone's life or improve healthcare delivery and outcomes. And so we're really coalescing around those healthcare challenges, but you'll see more focused activity around our commercialization programs. So our proof of concept QED program and launch lane, and really looking across the continuum from ideation through commercial launch, where the gaps are, where do we develop new capabilities internally at the Science Center, where do we partner with other organizations. And then you'll see consistent messaging and activities around our community involvement and what that means in West Philadelphia, and really playing a role, I believe, in addressing healthcare disparities, through the development of new technologies. You'll see an emphasis from us around clear communications about where the Science Center is going and what we do as an organization and how we collaborate with others. And then really thinking long-term about the financial sustainability of the Science Center through our unique assets, but then also being able to play a role in addressing early stage capital gaps within seed and Series A type companies, specifically in medtech and digital health, but that could be expanded.
Yeah. So I want to come back to one of the things that I think you've really honed in on that probably speaks to both the accelerator and commercialization programs. I've concluded that you have a really keen eye for where companies in the early stage run into trouble and fail. And so I'm wondering if we can talk just a little bit more about that and how you see the Science Center as really making a difference in driving the success of the companies that are growing in our cluster.
Yeah, so the consistent theme around where companies fail is usually an accurate voice of customer is not there. So there's technology being developed where a market doesn't exist. The customer doesn't want it. It may be too expensive. It may not fit in their portfolio of products. And the companies, the startups, most of the time aren't having the conversations with the customers, whether it's the healthcare provider, the payer, the patient. They're not having it early enough in the process. And so we've got relationships that we've developed and some new programs that we're putting together, some different experts, operators from around the country that we've been working with, where this is what they know. They evaluate and pick new products all the time. And so it's really around building that piece, because it's not necessarily the challenges of getting regulatory approval anymore. It's all about market adoption at a time when, healthcare continues to change. We have a new administration with President Biden. We know it's going to continue to evolve. The payments, the business models, the opportunities with things like telemedicine that has become suddenly an overnight okay thing to pursue because of COVID. Just lots of opportunities there by working with our customers.
So one of my favorite things that you've said in the course of our conversation is start with the end in mind. Mm-hmm. And so we haven't talked about this at all, but let me throw it out there. In 10 years, what's that end that you're envisioning right now for the Science Center? What does that look like?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if I have a solid answer for you yet, or one that I'm willing to discuss. But look, coming in from the outside, and when I think about all the people I've met around the country and know what's happening in different ecosystems, I've not heard a lot around the gem that exists within the Philadelphia region. And the concentration of eds and meds, the number of lives under care in the greater region, the technical expertise, the academic excellence, it's all right in Philadelphia. And so I think if we can, if I can stand here 10 years from now and show that we have grown the impact, amplified the impact of the Science Center, achieved our vision, sparked new collaborations to see where Philadelphia really becomes the place for innovators in cell and gene therapy and ancillary technologies and, novel ways to approach healthcare challenges. And we've seen job growth, not only in undergraduate and graduate and PhD level jobs, but also in technician level jobs, and really to have our community broadly in Philadelphia engaged in this sector. If the Science Center can play a role in helping to drive that, then that will be something to really be proud of.
Well, Tiffany, you've articulated a very clear vision for the future of the Science Center. I know there's much more to come. There are details, the 6 pillars, or maybe there are 5 strategic pillars that are in front of you. I know that we will soon come to know them, and we really look forward to the impact that you're going to have. We welcome you to Philadelphia, and look forward to having you back on maybe in the next 6 months when the course is already set sail. What's that?
With the big reveal.
With the big reveal. Well, you'll be well on your. I got a good sense of you. You will be well on your way in 6 months' time. We'll be beyond reveal. So anyway, thank you.
I appreciate the warm welcome, and thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good.